Well, good morning. It is Monday morning yet again. It's always when you look on a Friday and you think we've got the weekend, that Monday looms large. Two fastest days in the week, Saturday and Sunday. Boy, do they disappear fast. Do they ever? Anyway, here we are in the White Hart Hotel. This is Keith Hayes, and this is Mirador Television, the biggest little television enterprise in the world. But we are local, not parochial. We look at issues from all over the world, issues locally, and we try to put them all in perspective for you. And I'm afraid that it is sex that raises its ugly head again this morning, as so often it does in headlines. It doesn't matter. The funny thing is that the newspapers, I suppose because in some ways can be considered part of the establishment, always find sex in establishment organizations. You can almost see my new hat there. It never seems to happen in sort of ordinary sort of backstreet shops or in council corridors. Well, yes, that happens in council corridors, but also always there is the question of sex is either in Parliament, in the civil service, in the media, and so on and so forth. All those things that you might consider as being part of our structure. And I am afraid that that's the way it is this time, because it's the BBC. The BBC, which is in the firing line from it's under investigation, and it is from something that started in May, so 3 months ago, and is being trumpeted all over the place because it is claimed that the Director General of the BBC did not act fast enough on this one. So let's see what the newspapers are saying. The Daily Express kicks off with the BBC suspends a star accused of paying teen for photos. Wow. Okay. Unnamed teen at the moment. And of course, it depends if he's underage or he or she is underage. Then they never will be named, or at least not at this stage. The Telegraph says, did I say we were starting with the Telegraph? No, I didn't. I said we were starting with the Daily Express. And it says the BBC star has been accused of paying a young person £35,000 for explicit pictures. The corporation is in turmoil, says the paper, adding that police have been told about the allegations. Right, well, there we are. That puts it into a nutshell. It is the Daily Telegraph. BBC calls in the police over star sex scandal. The Telegraph says the controversy over the alleged star sex scandal threatens to engulf the BBC, and it's prompted senior executives at the corporation to contact the Metropolitan Police. The BBC's internal investigations will meet Scotland Yard detectives for help with the case today. The paper notes it also features a picture of actor Brad Pitt, who was filming at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone on Sunday, and no suggestion whatsoever either Brad Pitt works for the BBC or that he's involved in this. Just an unfortunate juxtaposition for him. Right, okay. The Sun suspended BBC man's panic call to a youngster. Well, let's see what the Sun has to take on it. The Sun has revealed new allegations about the BBC presenter accused of paying someone for explicit images. In a news story, the paper claims the presenter made what it calls 2 panicked calls to the young person after the Sun's report came out. The presenter allegedly asked the young person, "What have you done?" and asked them to ring their mother to get her to stop the investigation. That's what the paper says. I heard some noise behind me, but there's nobody there. I'm hearing ghosts. This is a very old hotel, by the way. It's a 15th century coaching inn, for those who aren't familiar with it. And it's got its own version of spooks in the corridor. Right, okay. Then the Metro. It actually has the headline, Beeb's Brief Crisis, but it also shows this dominates in pictures its front page because England squeaked home by 3 wickets yesterday on the test. I treated myself out to lunch to the pub, and oh dear. Right, okay. I treated myself out to lunch at my local pub, the Black Horse, a lovely little pub. Had some nice lamb and plenty of veggies and so on and so forth, and a cider, and sat and watched until we were, I think, 6 wickets down, and I could stand no more, and thought that I'd better go home before I had a heart attack. And it appears that the captain also couldn't watch. Stokes could not watch his last batsman get the 20 or 30 runs needed. The tension was too great for him. I know, exact feeling. Anyway, unfortunately, we have to go back. We do have to go back to the main headline, which is the sex scandal rocketing the BBC. Beeves brief crisis, declares the Metro, as it reports MPs have claimed that the BBC's Director General was too slow. That's more or less the only addition that the Metro has got on the issue. The BBC acted too slow after they received the complaint. The Eye, BBC in crisis as police are called in over a star accused of teen sex scandal. Director General Tim Davie has confirmed the BBC first received a complaint about the unnamed presenter in May, prior to information emerging this week. The paper says big names in the BBC have taken to social media to deny being the individual involved. It's not me, Gov. It's not me. It's not me. Oh, dear, dear, dear. They're all rushing for cover. But presumably, what a silly thing to do, because it starts as no smoke without fire. If they are actually rushing to say this isn't me that they're talking about, does it mean that somewhere lurking in their background or lurking underneath the surface, there is something about them? Perhaps we are in for a series of shocks, similar to the Jimmy Savile revelations of 8 or 10 years ago. Goodness gracious me. The establishment. The Mirror, it also has a picture of the cricketers, but presenter suspended. BBC calls in the cops. Star reported to police. Let's see, the Mirror. BBC calls in the cops. The paper says Mr. Davey, who is Director General, defended the corporation, saying the presenter was dropped after new allegations came to light. Labour MP Rachel Reeves says the BBC needs to get a grip, as it seems to lurch from one scandal to another. The Daily Mail. Now BBC calls in police over sex pictures claim. Presenter suspended as Culture Secretary holds urgent talks after allegations that the star paid teen thousands for a photo. The Culture Secretary, Lucy Fraser, held urgent talks with the BBC's Director General on Sunday, that's yesterday, about the allegations being faced by a presenter. The paper also features a picture of Noura Sajjad, who is the second girl to die from her injuries after the Land Rover, or a state car, crashed into a school in southwest London while they were having a end of school picnic. One little girl was killed at the scene, and now a second has died from her injuries. A very sad situation that was. It was well covered by the media. Right. The Times. Its banner is judges urged to get tough with just stop oil protesters, but the paper has gone the way of Fleet Street. BBC refers sex photos presenter to the Met Police, although beside it there's a picture of Mark Wood and Chris Wokes after they scored the winning runs to give England victory in the Test match. The BBC suspended the unnamed presenter nearly 2 months after a complaint was first made by the young person's family. The paper says the family first complained on 19th of May, but saw that the presenter was still on air in June. Now, the interesting thing is that each of these papers is adding or subtracting a little to the overall story. Not one of them has got every bit in. You have to read through all the subheads to get the full picture of what's going on here. Essentially, the scandal is that an unknown presenter has been paying substantial amounts to a teen, whether it's underage or overage, as nobody knows at the moment, but to have sort of explicit sexual photographs taken, not knowing what that means either. And the mother of the young person has complained and complained to the police after she contacted the BBC, or the BBC contacted her to say, look, let's settle it internally. And she says, well, they didn't. That this star presenter was alerted. It was alerted that he was doing naughty things with her child in May, and that in June the presenter was still on the air. They had done nothing. Now she's complained again, and this time to the press, and so the BBC have called in, or say they're going to talk to the police and get them to handle it. It seems that it's a severe enough situation. But now the establishment itself, running for cover, is saying, hey, you didn't act fast enough. And the complaint has been made to Davey, who is the Director General of the BBC. And that's more or less where it stands, except that a number of presenters, people who are regularly on the air, have rushed out to social media to say, not me. It's not me they're talking about. No. It's as I just said, I think it's the daftest thing they could have done, because now what we're doing is we're watching them to see whether, in fact, they are going to be wrapped up in this thing, not necessarily from this specific, but after all that we hear about propriety and who can say what and who should do what and how we should treat women and how women should be treated and so on and so forth, is what do we actually get? We get situations like this, where it would seem that sex matters prevalent throughout these organizations. Or have we raised the bar on what constitutes a sex offense? I don't know, but it certainly is. Either the rules have changed, or we've got the randiest bunch of people in almost every walk of life possibly can have. It's incredible. It's incredible. Now, the Daily Star, sex pics. The BBC call in the cops. New allegations force boss to raise game. The new allegations, says the Star, have forced the boss of the BBC to raise the game, says the Star. The paper says the corporation has faced criticism over why the suspension of the presenter took so long. It's also got a little sub box with a picture of Gary Lineker, so saying, Air Miles Lineker. Whether that's another scandal starting to raise. I mean, Gary Lineker should never have intervened in the issue that he did, and I can't even remember what it is, but he put his head above the parapet, and now everybody's taking aim at him. I don't know whether I feel sorry for him or not. I mean, he's shown a certain amount of arrogance, and I really don't care what people think. I can't blame him for that. One should never worry about what people think. But by the same token, if you're in the limelight, if you're a star, you have to some extent, show that you're aware of your actions being able to affect so many people. The Guardian. Right, okay. Here we've got a change of story at last. The Guardian is the secret stakes held by MPs in top UK firms. There is the City of London, and there are the headquarters of many British businesses, but also the exchanges, the traders, the dealers, etc., are based in Canary Wharf. And the Guardian leads with an exclusive news story that reveals more than 50 MPs have owned stakes in publicly listed companies that raised questions about possible conflicts of interest. The paper also says that until now, these stakes have been, in effect, secret. Dozens of MPs have shares in banks, house builders, defence companies, and supermarkets, the paper notes. I must say that I find this one a bit difficult. It's not being very specific about the charges. I see nothing wrong as long as it's declared that members of have got an interest in the company and therefore can't get involved in anything in Parliament to do with that company, is that they're doing much wrong, is that they own shares. Okay, yes, I mean, it's stretching it, that makes them an owner, a part owner of a company. But if I own 10 shares, I once owned 25 shares in British Airways and make me the owner of the company. So that's stretching it a little bit, I think. The other thing is that, there are safeguards. against abuse of people who own shares using influence. And for instance, I worked for Reuters for a decade, and I had to register with Reuters who I owned shares, which companies I owned shares in. So that if I was dealing with those companies and a story, they could make an assessment as to whether to leave me on that story or whether I should be anywhere near it or that everything is okay. And those sort of safeguards normally do sit in place. I don't know whether the Guardian is going fishing on this particular occasion. It's difficult to tell. And the Financial Times has got a different story as well. The Financial Times it talks about NATO, and Germany and the United States are under pressure from other allies to show greater support for Ukraine's eventual membership of NATO. Ukraine wants to join, and the two big guys, Germany and the United States, are a bit ambivalent about it. Hang on, should we let this country into NATO? Not least of which is my understanding was that at the time of Glasnost and the Soviet Union breaking up, is that the powers that be actually made an informal agreement that any country bordering on Russia would not be member of NATO because the Russians, even in the friendly period immediately post Glasnost, felt that that would be a threat to their sovereignty. And my understanding is that the first people to break it, of course, were the EU. But anyway, that's another issue. But NATO is, if that agreement was in place, then of course Ukraine could not become a member of NATO. But every other NATO country wants Ukraine a member of the NATO, and perhaps the actions by Vladimir Putin on behalf of Russia have neutered the agreement. It's difficult to say. But apparently, it's one of those organizations where everybody can have a veto. And Sweden has been denied membership because Turkey doesn't like them. And Turkey is a fairly major member of NATO. So it all gets terribly, terribly complicated. The membership of NATO is coming. Just this issue has arisen just days before NATO leaders meet in Lithuania. They are going to meet next week, a big NATO meeting. Lithuania, of course, borders onto Russia and was a satellite state. It is a lovely little country, actually, and I have been and stayed and worked in Vilnius, and I like Lithuania very much. But in hosting NATO conference, I rather think that it would be like a red rag to a bull to the Russians. So who knows who's playing with what? But the NATO issue is bubbling over as a major issue, as a division in the West. The UK put down a heavily favoured and a man with a terrific reputation, I think Ben Wallace, I think it's Ben, as the next NATO Secretary General. And Joe Biden said, no, not having that. And what did Biden do? Propose and support the present president of the EU, Van Leyen. And she has a very colourful history, not least of which is, at home in Germany, She was in charge of their defense department and absolutely cocked it up. So you see, what happens at the top isn't always in our best interest at all. It's to do with personalities and how they see things. So Joe Biden has not done himself any favors whatsoever. Oh, well, there are the headlines, but dominated this morning. Dominated by the issue of sex and the BBC. Whether that will pervade, I have no idea. Once again, though, there was a very exciting third test match, which was make or break for England. If they lost it, that was it. The Ashes had gone. And it was a very thrilling finish with the two last, all the recognised batsmen having gone, and the two lower order men conquering the bowling to see us home with a day to spare. It's wonderful stuff for us. But one of the things about this test has been is that we only by a very small margin lost the first test, by a small margin lost the second test, and indeed it shows that these two sides are very evenly balanced. It is a good contest, and so the last two test matches will be, particularly if England win the second one, the last one will be a humdinger. My goodness me, will it ever? So there we go. That's what it's all about. It's Monday. I know what we've got to do. We've got to take a look at. Hang on, we must take a look at the weather, and we'll do that. Well, we should do it. Of course, after everything going hunky-dory right throughout this morning, it's not going to play ball now. Isn't that just... Right, there we go. Right, today we're going to hit 21 degrees, and it's already 18. It is warm enough. However, there is a gentle breeze, and we could see some scattered clouds throughout the day. It's not going to rain, at least very little. In fact, the forecast for rain is 0 right throughout the day. Not going to rain. It'll at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, it's just about now, it's going to be full sunshine. That's going to be the nicest part of the day. And the cloud will come and sprinkle across until 4 o'clock, when once again we're going to have full-blooded sunshine. So it's rather good. The sad news is that throughout the week, tomorrow we're forecast it's chillier at 19 degrees and some rain. Wednesday, same 20 degrees, some rain. Thursday, no rain forecast, but certainly cloud, although the temperature staying up at 20. And on Friday, also 20, but once again, some cloud. So it's turning into a typically English summer. After all the forecasts, it's all baking to death. It doesn't seem as if that's going to transpire. And you can now take your sandwiches to the beach. You can sit and you can get sand in them in a time-honored fashion and have a wonderful time and not get either burned to death, frizzed, or in any way, let's see, anyway, inconvenienced except for the odd wasp and gritty sandwiches. The main news locally is stations across the southeast are going to have their ticket offices closed, not least of which is London. And they've launched Brighton and New Haven going to lose ticket offices, and traditional ticket office windows. Close these offices and instead put staff members onto platforms where they can be more visible and accessible to customers. So that's it. That's where we stand at the moment. We will be back with you in half an hour. Unfortunately, we've had these things happen when you have working presenters. Is that we will not have the barristers this morning, the two Bs. Richard has had to spring off to Portsmouth, to the courts down there. So hopefully he'll be with us later in the week. And Suzanne Mouchot has been called to a very important meeting in New York, so she can't join us this morning. Who's going to join us? I have no idea. Perhaps the old man will want to buy. For the moment, it is it's 1 minute past 9. We've got young Steve here. I might call him in and interview him. Let's see what he's going to do with the bar. He hasn't brought my coffee yet.
I have.
Right. Where?
He's here.
Oh, there it is. I take it back. Did you hear that cry? The cry of pain when I accused him of not doing so. Oh my goodness me! Oh, I'll take my hat off to you, Steve. But anyway, there's a great support team here who look after me, and they're going to look after me. And we hopefully it is 9 o'clock now, and we'll be back with you in just half an hour. Yes, half an hour. It is. So just for the moment, toodle pip.